Call the meeting to order. If the witnesses could come forward, please. Thank you. So, pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee will continue its study of consumer protection and oversight in relation to Schedule I banks, and at the first hour and a half session, we have representatives of three of the banks here, and we will start, I guess, with Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Mr. Wambold. Welcome, gentlemen. We appreciate you coming. Mr. Wambold, I believe you. Do you have an opening statement? And we'll go from there?
Yeah, I do. Right.
Floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Scott Wambold, and I'm here in my capacity as Senior Vice President of CIBC's National Sales and Service Team. In this role, I lead all national sales leadership and business management activities in support of sales performance and service effectiveness for small business and personal banking on the retail side. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today about CIBC, our values and culture, and our efforts to put our clients first. At CIBC, we have 43,000 team members who are working hard to build trusted and long-lasting relationships with our 11 million clients. Our number one priority is to put our clients at the center of everything we do. It's what we want to be known for, and it's the kind of client-first culture we are building. This is true at our bank, regardless of whether you work behind the scenes on our risk or human resources teams, or whether you deal directly with our clients every day. As a bank, our shared purpose is helping our clients prosper and grow. This means getting to know our clients, understanding their needs, and making sure that they get the right advice and solutions to achieve their financial goals. It also means living our values in our everyday decisions, actions, and interactions with our clients, team members, and communities. To give you some color on what this means, I'd like to give you a few examples. It means speaking to clients in plain language. Life can be complicated, and it is our job to make sure that financial services are made simple and easy for our clients to understand. It also means taking on our clients' issues as our own and making it right for them by providing a fair and fast resolution. And it means having the right escalation processes in place so that clients or employees can raise concerns at any point and have confidence that they will be addressed. On this note, we should be clear. While the vast majority of client interactions go smoothly and as expected, in an industry with tens of millions of clients and billions of transactions completed each year, issues will arise from time to time. Our commitment is to ensure that we have the proper procedures in place to minimize the risk of issues arising in the first place, and to identify them quickly if they do. If issues do arise, we take them very seriously, investigate them immediately, and take appropriate actions. Our approach to these issues can be captured in three key themes: our people, our processes, and our culture. Looking at our people, we make an ongoing investment in employee education and mandate that our employees refresh their training annually. In 2016 alone, we invested over $60 million in training. We are continuously coaching our team on best practices and providing the most current information that will enable them to best serve our clients. Our code of conduct is also very important. It sets out the principles and standards for our team's behavior, ensuring that our actions and words reflect our culture. It also sets out expectations and protections for employees to speak up and voice their concerns, including through confidential means. We're also working to ensure our team is empowered to get to know their clients, understand what their goals are, and work with their clients to help them meet those goals. From a process perspective, we are focused on having the right programs, measurement, and incentives in place to ensure that our team role models appropriate behaviors and actions. Further, to ensure these processes and systems are working, we have intelligent monitoring in place. CIBC is absolutely accountable for these processes and monitoring, but we also actively work with various external parties, including our regulators, as they provide oversight to our industry. And finally, culture. At the heart of our reputation and our culture is a team that puts our clients at the center of everything we do. For CIBC, this starts with the tone from the top. From the most senior levels, we are committed to reinforcing a culture that puts our clients first and ensuring that this is the lens through which all decisions are made. We are also committed to building an inclusive and empowered team through a culture of employee engagement. Whether volunteering for one of our community events, participating in learning and development initiatives, or being recognized by peers and management, our culture of engagement helps ensure we work as one team towards the same goal of putting our clients at the heart of everything we do. To this end, in 2016, we were recognized as one of Canada's 10 most admired corporate cultures by Waterstone, and our employee survey showed that 86% of employees felt that different points of view were of value in their teams. 89% would recommend CIBC as a place to do business, and 88% were proud to be identified with our bank. We've also been recognized as one of Canada's top 100 employers by MediaCorp for 5 years running, one of the 50 most engaged workplaces in Canada by Achievers for the last 4 years, and have been awarded Most Admired Corporate Culture Awards twice in a 5-year span. So in closing, I would like to thank the committee members for their time and attention to this topic. We welcome the opportunity for input and discussion here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wambold. Turning then to Scotiabank, Mr. Fedrin.
Mr. McFedrin. Yes. Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is James McFedrin, and I'm responsible for Scotiabank's retail distribution network in Canada. In this role, I lead the bank's regional and local branch managers and employees and oversee our branch network. I have been a Scotiabank employee since 1996. I want to acknowledge at the outset that we clearly understand the importance of the issues before the committee. The hearing addresses foundational elements, most importantly culture and leadership, and I will address both topics in my brief remarks today. Let me start by providing you with some context on Scotiabank's operations in Canada. We first opened our doors in 1832, and today we have more than 34,000 employees in Canada, including more than 14,000 employees in approximately 1,000 retail branches. We have more than 8 million domestic customers, and we annually process more than 400 million customer transactions. To better support our employees and serve our customers, we also collect more than 1 million pieces of employee and customer feedback each year. Since the focus of the hearing is sales practices, let me begin by addressing that topic directly. We engage with customers in a robust process that includes 4 key elements. The first is training to ensure employees are well equipped to support customers. Next, our customer experience model guides employees to assess customer needs and develop a financial strategy. Third, we have a variety of feedback mechanisms to ensure we hear from employees and customers regularly. And lastly, we monitor sales to ensure compliance with our practices. Scotiabank branches operate such that all of our employees are focused on the needs of the customer. Our tellers do not have sales targets, and branch advisors provide customers balanced advice based on their needs. We monitor and enhance sales practices and processes on an ongoing basis to ensure we are meeting the needs of our customers, and we are confident that our practices are sound. Occasionally, there will be times when we don't meet customer needs. When this happens, we want to know so that we can make things right. I also would like to take a moment to speak more broadly about culture and trust. At the heart of our culture is a singular mission. Scotiabank was founded to help people achieve their financial goals. The values of integrity and respect have always been core to our culture. They guide our behavior, they define us as Scotiabankers, and they form the basis for our code of conduct. Our industry is undergoing rapid change, driven by customer preferences that are altering how banking services are delivered. The nature of the relationship between banks and their customers is evolving. Of the more than 400 million annual day-to-day transactions I mentioned earlier, more than 80% now take place outside the branch, mostly through online and mobile channels. Our digital transformation is driving many benefits for customers, simplifying their banking experience, offering improved convenience, and ultimately leading to higher satisfaction. The changes are also empowering for our people. Digital technology allows us to be more customer-focused and to spend more time giving advice. Advice is a foundation of our retail business, and it is core to the value that we provide to customers. We also hear from employees that providing customers with advice, whether it's advice about purchasing their first home, setting up an RESP for a child, or planning for their retirement, is a big part of what they enjoy about their job. Through it all, the foundation of banking remains relationships, and the cornerstone of every relationship is trust. Regardless of how services are delivered, we have never taken this trust for granted. We have received input from more than 700,000 customers in Canada so far this year, and our satisfaction levels are strong. In fact, the highest feedback scores consistently go to our frontline teams, who customers appreciate for their friendliness and responsive and attentive behavior. Let me close by saying that our people take their responsibility very seriously and that we are deeply proud of our team of Scotiabankers across this country. They embody the values of our organization, they work hard on behalf of our customers, and they do so with integrity. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this hearing. I hope I have been able to shed some light on Scotiabank's culture and leadership approach and the strong and enduring values which guide our team every day.
Thank you very much, Mr. McFedrin. Turning then to the TD Bank Financial Group, Mr. Pilkington.
Thank you. It was perfectly pronounced.
They all laugh around here. I have trouble with names.
You perfectly pronounced my name. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Pilkington, and I am Executive Vice President for Branch Banking at TD Bank Group. I was born in the UK and have lived and worked in Europe, South America, and for the last 14 years in Canada. I'm proud to say my family and I are dual Canadian-British citizens. In my role at TD, I lead 22,000 employees in 1,150 branches across Canada. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, or OSFI, is our home prudential regulator, the regulator that oversees the stability of Canadian financial institutions by ensuring that they, like TD Bank Group, are meeting agreed standards for capital, liquidity and leverage, as well as conducting themselves in a safe and sound manner. OSFI also interacts with all of the other regulators, both domestic and international, that oversee our individual lines of business. With respect to the consumer protection rules, of the 22,000 employees in branch banking, those providing core banking services are overseen by the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, or FCAC. Within the 22,000 people, about 4,000 of those employees are registered with the Mutual Fund Dealers Association, or MFDA, to sell mutual funds. MFDA members are licensed by provincial securities commissions, and the MFDA is the national body that oversees the Canadian mutual fund industry. We also have TD employees in TD Waterhouse Canada that are registered with the Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada, or IROC as it's better known, to provide investment advice. IROC members are licensed with provincial securities commissions, and IROC is a national body overseeing Canadian investment dealers. I think this is important to understand given the scope of the federal consumer protection regime. Now let me turn to the matter that is before this committee. When we first heard the media report that started this discussion, frankly, we were all at TD very surprised and very troubled. TD has always been a customer-focused organization with a strong track record of developing internal talent. And that's not just our view. We know this from our ongoing surveys that evaluate customer experience and employee satisfaction. These findings are validated by external benchmarks like J.D. Power's consumer rankings and Aon Hewitt's study of top employers in Canada. So what was reported in the media does not square with the organization that I, along with all of my colleagues at TD, know and respect. Soon after the allegations appeared, many of my colleagues and I spent time traveling the country, meeting our frontline people to talk with them face to face. There were two clear messages in the feedback that I received. They told me that the way TD is being portrayed in the media does not align with their experiences. And they also told me that if such problems are identified, then we expect you, Andy, to stamp them out, and I couldn't agree with them more. In any large company, there will be some challenging situations which occur that need to be dealt with. We have processes in place to monitor sales practices and detect issues if they do arise and address them. It's our vision to be the better bank in every aspect of how we run our business, how we treat our customers, and how we support our people. We constantly look for areas of opportunity and ways to improve, and this matter is no different. I can assure you that we are again looking at ways that we can improve our processes to better monitor communities and colleagues. In our branches, day in and day out, our people fulfill that mission by welcoming customers, understanding their needs, offering them helpful advice, and enabling our customers to meet their own goals and aspirations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well. Then turning to the first round of questions, 7 minutes, Mr. Fergus.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Puis j'invite.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to ask our guests, if you do not speak French, to put on your headphones. Firstly, welcome to Ottawa. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your remarks. Based on what you've said, it would seem that there's no reason to be holding these committee meetings. However, I assure you that we've also heard other things from Canadians, such as former bank employees, as well as from your regulatory agency.
Agency of Canada told this committee that FCAC staff has been asked to review bank sales practices, and she told this committee that the FCAC, and I quote, is assessing whether sales targets and incentive programs are contributing to practices that may be leading to poor outcomes for consumers. So let me just ask all three of you a series of questions, and if you could be very brief, because I only have a certain amount of time for you to respond. Has your bank been approached to provide information by the FCAC, or to the FCAC in the course of this review? And if so, is this review...
Could I just hold a minute? Is the language... I know you're okay to hear English, Mr. Fedrin. Is the earpieces working?
Pour vous, est-ce que si je parle en français, est-ce que vous allez entendre?
Speak French, will you hear me better?
Just try French so that the translation comes through. If you could, Greg.
The translation over here.
Okay.
Est-ce que ça fonctionne maintenant?
Working now? Mr. McFedrin, is it working?
I can move if you'd like. My apologies.
It's not your fault, Mr. McFedrin. It's not the first time that Unit 7 worked. Don't worry about it. There, try, Greg, can you...
Fonctionne maintenant si je parle en français.
Is it working now if I speak French? Will you hear the English interpretation? Is it working for everyone? Very good.
Your questions, I think you had a question for all three. Go ahead.
So I'll get straight to the questions for all three, and I hope that my time will still be allotted accordingly.
Yep.
Look, has your bank been approached to provide information to the FCAC in the course of this review? And if so, is this review specific to the practices of the head offices of the banks or to the branches of the banks? Secondly, are there mechanisms in place at the head office to monitor the practices of what happens in your branches, particularly in relation to sales targets and incentive programs? And if so, can you please describe these mechanisms? And if you don't have these mechanisms, can you explain why not?
Okay, who wants to start? Mr. McPhedran? Sure.
I'll start. I can tell you that the FCAC is in our office right now. As are with OSFI, working on the review that we all know about. They've been in the first aspect of the review is a data gathering exercise, which we've been underway with for a couple of weeks. We owe a full pack of data to the FCAC by the end of June. I can tell you it is incredibly robust. Some of our people are saying it's the likes that they haven't seen before in terms of the depth and breadth of the information that they've asked for. It does include both branch and head office processes. So from what I can see, it's a very comprehensive request, and we have teams of people that are working night and day right now pulling that information together.
Appreciate that. So the second half of that, does your bank have mechanisms in place to monitor what's going on in the branches, not only at head office, but in the branches? And can
of
you
course.
give us an example?
Yes. So we have a very significant process that monitors sales practices. So that begins in the branch, as you talked about, in terms of next day reviews and ensuring that the right thing is going on. And then at head office, we look at a variety of mechanisms using analytics that look at trends, that look at out-of-pattern behaviors, that look at different types of sales as another check and balance. The third, I would say, is the feedback loops that we have. So we have a variety of feedback mechanisms for employees and for customers, whether it be ongoing customer satisfaction research or issues that customers may have. All of these are coalesced to bring together the information that we require to ensure our sales practices are sound.
Mr.
Pilkington?
Sure. Yep, so in terms of the FCAC, I think they're treating all the banks exactly the same, so there's consistency. So rather than repeat my competitors' words, the exact same process is going on at TD. In terms of head office and branch banking and all channels, we are reviewing all of them. We have systems and processes and support in place to make sure that we don't have sales practice issues. So similarly, we would have data analytics. We gather data around if there are any outliers, if we see anything that looks out of the norm in terms of data patterns, whether that's individuals or whether that's geographies. We have a procedure whereby we'd investigate that, and clearly if there is any wrongdoing that we see, we would then take action accordingly.
Mr. Womble?
Sure, yes. FCAC and OSFI have issued comprehensive requests for information, and our teams are very actively putting responses back together for them. In terms of the second question, yes, we have a number of different lines of defense, so to speak, in terms of monitoring sales practices, including, and this cannot be understated, making sure that we hire the right people that completely understand our code of conduct and our core values and seek to embody that code of conduct and core values in everything they do. We also hold the business responsible for ensuring that they understand what's driving their sales results. We have intelligent monitoring in place that can point out any outliers, and then the business is responsible for investigating and understanding what's driving those outliers. That's reinforced by our finance and risk teams and compliance teams that override, and their mandate is to question the business on those sorts of outliers. And then backing that up is our audit team, which routinely goes through the business at a very detailed level, ensuring that all policies and procedures are adhered to.
I appreciate those very clear answers. Some of the witnesses that we had mentioned that their concerns is not necessarily on the things that you would consider outliers, but in fact that the practices, the sales incentive practices that have come to our attention through the media are so widespread that actually they're part of the regular system. How do you try to identify those actions in terms of the goals that you have for your incentives or sales practices, and also the incentives that you have, that frankly it might be part of the regular practices of the bank that leads people to try to fit clients into products that they don't necessarily need. How do you try to capture that?
Who wants to start? Mr. Wambold?
Sure. Our code of conduct is clear, but I think it starts even before the code of conduct in terms of the tone from the top at CIBC, and that's about putting the client first in everything we do, making the right call on behalf of the client every day. As well as growing our enterprise is another key component to our mandate, and that's growing our enterprise over the long term. So some of the sales practices that you referred to in the media are absolutely unacceptable to CIBC. We have many means in place to make sure that if any employee feels that this is being pressured on them or that they observe this behavior, they have a number of means with which they can make management aware of this, including going to their manager. If that's not an appropriate path or they feel like they would like to do something else, they can go to their one-up manager or involve their HR representative that's usually very close or on site. And then we have a number of other escalation paths that can be completely confidential. If they feel that they would like to refer something on a confidential means, we have our confidential ethics hotline, our corporate security mailbox, and our ombudsman's office.
I think a large part of what your question is about how goals are set, and I think it's important for the committee to know that our goals are set in a balanced approach. So for us, that means that our frontline tellers don't have sales targets, that our advisors are targeted with a customer experience, the foremost element of their scorecard. That balance with kind of the ongoing approach that they have with customers, the number of customers that they're meeting, the number of financial plans that they're doing. Sales are an element, but again, it's within a balanced approach. The other is that each of our scorecards has both a what and a how metric. So what was actually done, but how, and that's where things like compliance and adherence to the code come in. So when we're talking about goals or targets, this notion of balance is something that is very important to us.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is when we actually look at our front line and how we compensate them, the vast majority of their compensation is actually their base salary. So there's a relatively small part of their compensation which is variable. And within that variable component, sales targets is one component, but an even more important component is actually customer satisfaction. So we poll tens of thousands of our customers every month as they have interactions, whether it's in branches, over the phone, or even digitally. And we'll ask them, were they satisfied with the advice they received? Did they feel like they got good service? And that's the biggest component of how we reward the variable component, which is relatively small. So we aim for that equilibrium, that balanced approach that was referred to by my competitor. The other thing I'd say is our goals are not product specific. So we don't actually say to people in the branches or on the phone, you have to sell X number of a certain product, be it a mortgage, credit card, wherever it may be. They're actually aggregated, and what we're really looking for is to get a real balance of what customers need, customer-centric goals, and not what products that we necessarily want to sell within the bank. So it's very, very customer-focused. It's up to the individuals in the branch to spot the needs and sell those products which fit those customers' needs.
Thank you. Mr. Deltel.
Thank you, Chair and gentlemen. Be welcome to your House of Commons, and we deeply appreciate the quality of the people that we have in front of us today. I will be in the same spirit of Mr. Fergus, asking one question and avoiding the answer from all three of you. Gentlemen, you spoke about advise people in your business, no sales target, everything going well. We are here first and foremost for the people and the customer. That's not exactly what we have seen on TV, and not exactly what we have heard a few days ago here in this parliamentary committee. So I was wondering, what kind of watchdog do you have in your business? And when I talk about watchdog, is that someone who can listen to a phone call when one of your employees call, who speak to someone else, to a consumer. Do you have that kind of watchdog who can just listen without the knowledge of your employee?
Whoever wants to start, I believe Mr. Pilkington.
Yes, we do. So we record every call that comes into the phone channel. So if there is ever an issue and a customer complains about something, then we can go back and actually listen to that call in its entirety. So every single call is recorded and held indefinitely. We do have regular monitoring, so there are teams of people whose sole responsibility is to actually select calls at random and listen to those calls, and where they see things where an employee is not necessarily done the right thing in terms of the advice they've offered, or they need some refresher training, then we'll go away and do that and coach the employee. But there's regular ongoing monitoring by the actual line of business. And then of course we have partners in compliance, for example, who will come in and they'll do and audits as well will happen, so that we ensure that everybody is doing the right thing.
Mr. McPhedran.
Similarly, in our contact center channels, we record every call, and we also have a mechanism whereby we do speech analytics. So if there are things that we want to look specifically towards, we can pull those calls out and have a look there. In our branch channel, it's done mostly through coaching from their supervisor, as well. The volume of surveys that we do. We'll do over 1 million this year, is such that each branch gets feedback most on a weekly basis as to the interactions that their staff were having with their customers. So very robust, and this is something we look at for compliance reasons, but more importantly, it's vital for us to do the things we need to be doing for customers.
Similar to the gentleman on my right, we have recording devices in place in our contact centers. We record all of the calls and we audit them, and it's usually more for a coaching or a training perspective as opposed to a sort of the watchdog type of approach. And we keep them on file in case there's ever a dispute or a client calls in and claims something. We can go back and validate it through the recordings. In our banking centers, the dominant theme in the banking centers is to do what's right for the client. We measure that at a banking center level in terms of client satisfaction. We also have coaches that are deployed across the country that are able to help various different members of our team in our banking centers should we spot something that may not be quite right. They can intervene and train, retrain, coach, and help guide that staff member to the appropriate behavior.
Yeah,
Mr. Deltel?
Yeah, I would just want to go a little bit further, because quite interesting to see that every call is recorded, so a consumer can ask us to get access to that. Is that possible for a consumer to get access to, if someone thinks that he has been not well treated by your employee, can he call your bank and say, well, just listen to the record and then you will see that he was not bad, he was not good. Can a consumer do that?
If customers make a complaint about a specific interaction, we'll obviously listen to the call and we'll investigate it. If we feel that the employee did not do right by the customer, we'll clearly rectify it by the customer. But if the customer is insistent, we feel the employee has done everything right and has followed the proper procedures and training, and the customer insists that there was an issue, then occasionally we'd have the customer join a call and actually listen to the actual call itself, and that's normally when the matter ends.
Do I understand quite well that the one who is listening to the call is one of your employees? Is that right? Is that correct?
Who's monitoring the call? Yeah,
the one, the third party.
The third parties will be an employee.
Is your employee.
But we would have people in the line of business, so the phone channel business, it's their actual job to listen to those calls day in, day out, and coach and train the people who are working on the front line. But then we have other lines, as we call them, lines of defense, so compliance, audit, etc., who'd actually come in and they would do testing and monitoring as well.
Okay, but do I understand well that the so-called watchdog, just to understand what we're talking, someone who's listening, someone who coach, is one of your employees. So would you welcome someone outside of your bank system who will be the watchdog?
Ultimately, I'll speak on behalf of Scotiabank. The majority of our concerns are rectified through our internal channels, whether that be what we call our Office of the President or our internal ombudsman. It's in the 95% plus range that are rectified there. Ultimately, if it gets referred to an external ombudsperson, that happens on occasion, and we're supportive of that.
Okay.
Mr. Wambold, or is it all been said?
Pretty much all been said, other than we think the ultimate watchdog are our clients. If they become dissatisfied with CIBC, there are any number of competitors that they can go to. And we poll our clients on a very, very regular basis and report back banking center by banking center what their clients are saying. And that includes verbatim comments from our clients.
Okay. One should never make assumptions, but I assume on all these calls there is the runner on it that tells an individual when they go on the line that the line is being monitored, etc. Correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dussault.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing. I think this is something very important, this study on banks' behavior, because I think that you have denied that there is a culture problem, a problem in the bank's culture. The Canadian Bankers Association has said that sales targets are meant to help clients first. But people who work for the banks have said quite the opposite. They've said that the bank culture did not put customers first. And a representative of the TD Bank insisted at various times, and in the testimony I've had, this is a former employee of TD Bank, and this person said that he felt obliged to attain target sales or sales objectives, and that he was to put the bank's well-being before that of the client. There are situations where employees are obliged to do things that aren't quite legal in order to reach their targets. Now, can you say that there are employees in your banks who will go so far as to falsify documents and will sell products without the express consent of customers? Are you aware of the existence of this problem?
Sure. Yeah, we obviously do not encourage employees to falsify documents. It is not a frequent occurrence. When it does happen, and there's an example of forgery taking place, we move quickly to an investigation and we would terminate that employee forthwith. So we would never encourage any underhand dealings and fraud like that. It's fraud. It's against our code of conduct. We're very clear about that. When employees come into the bank, they actually all read the code of conduct and they attest that they will follow the code of conduct. And that's an annual event as well. So they have to reread the code of conduct and attest to it. In fact, let me just read one sentence or two sentences from our code of conduct, the piece which actually covers sales misconduct. It says, whenever employees are servicing customers or providing advice or recommendations, we must deal fairly with our customers. As such, we must not allow our desire to increase our performance results to come before our focus on customers. So we're very clear in the code, and we back that up, as I mentioned earlier, with lots of different systems and processes to ensure that if we see any behavior which is undesirable, it's not in keeping with customers' interests, then we act very quickly.
Est-ce que vous pensez que les objectifs...
And do you feel that sales targets, when you ask your employees to keep selling more and more, do you think that this is the kind of thing that favors your customers or the bank's sales and profit margin?
Foundation for advice-based conversations, and we're really looking for our employees to help Canadians save time, save money, make money. That's what our employees tell us what they want. So we believe that having sales targets actually encourages our employees to have those advice-based conversations.
Et peut-être maintenant la banque Scotia.
And Scotiabank, we've also learned, according to certain testimony, that there are these sales targets, and there's also a practice in your banks, which is that when you don't achieve your targets, you get people get an email saying this employee has not reached his goal, so he's named and shamed. Is this that non-performing employees are named and shamed in your business?
Our goal is very clear for everybody in our organization, and that's to treat our people with fairness and respect. We're in the customer business. An engaged employee base leads to an engaged customer base. The data shows that our people, over 90% of our people say that their manager treats them with respect. But I guess what we've heard here is an opportunity for us to redouble our efforts to make sure people are aware of the internal channels to report those types of behaviors if they do occur. We've got feedback channels, both confidential and not, for those to be escalated. And we've also, in the last couple of months, we've had 1,000 of our managers, our entire branch management base together for a couple of days. And one of the key aspects of what we discussed was managing, leading, what's appropriate and what's not. And that's our way forward. And this treating people with fairness and respect is absolutely core to how we operate.
So,
I could, on any of these questions, the others who haven't answered, if you have something to add as well, I want to give all the banks equal opportunity. Mr. Wambolt, did you have anything to add other than what your colleagues have added?
Other than just any of the practices that we've been made aware of through the media, particularly fraud and forgery, are absolutely unacceptable to CIBC. Absolutely, without a doubt, contravenes our code of conduct, our ethical and professional standards that we require our staff to live by, and anybody engaging in such activities would be terminated. Our code of conduct is very clear on this regard, as are our sales best practices that we share across our network with our field representatives.
Time for one more. Go ahead.
Juste sur le code de conduite, Monsieur.
With respect to the code of conduct, this question is for the two others. The code of conduct, according to what we learned in our last sitting, was not a priority for the bank. It's not really letting employees, teaching them about the code of conduct with respect to privacy and also with respect to misuse of funds. And that are they getting constant information on this code of conduct if it exists? And are the employees made constantly aware of this code of conduct?
Yeah, one of our employees has to take code of conduct training at least once a year and attest to doing so. And there are often screensavers on our workstations that remind our staff of key elements of our code of conduct.
And I want to be clear on this. Adherence to our code of conduct is non-negotiable. It's understood in our organization. Our employees similarly attest and take courses with respect to the code every year. We have 6 tenets in our code of conduct. Tenet number 3 states, conduct yourself honestly and with integrity, and explicitly within that states, we do not compromise our ethics for meeting sales or other targets or goals. Very clear.
Okay. Did you want to sum up, Mr. Pilkington, on this point?
No, I think the member said he wanted an answer from the other two. So.
Okay. All right. Then, Mr. Greywall.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today. I think a lot of the questions are very much focused on the macro level of your code of conduct, what's in the bank's culture. But let's go for a second to the micro level, which is a customer walking into a bank. And I'd just like to hear from all three of you that if a customer walks into a bank, and let's say he has modest savings, about $10,000 to $15,000, or maybe that's actually a substantial amount, what a teller at each of your institutions, when looking at his balance, be recommending or asking the customer the question, have you thought of investing your money? And it's a yes or no question.
Just start. Go ahead, Mr. McFadden.
Our tellers have no sales targets. So the situation of that customer might lead them to encourage them to meet with our financial advisors. That's as far as it would go.
Yes.
That would be a referral if they think it's in the best interest of their customer.
Okay. Based on the only thing that they would know at the best interest of the customer would be the balance itself. So in this instance, a customer walks in, has a balance in his account, and the teller, according to your sales training, right, will recommend that customer to meet with an advisor, even though the customer has not asked to meet for investment or any investment advice at that point.
We're in the business of engaging our customers. We're in the business of customer satisfaction. Our customer satisfaction levels right now are at all-time highs. So if there's a specific...
Not to cut you off, sir. The customer comes into the bank for a particular purpose. He completes that purpose, and then the teller is trained based on the amount of money in that customer's account to offer him an opportunity to invest his money. Simple yes or no question. Mr. Pilling, I'll just call you Andrew.
Okay, thank you. I think it really depends on the circumstances, and I visit branches all
That
over.
was the hypothetical scenario.
No,
that's the circumstance, right?
Absolutely, but it does
To answer.
No problem, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it does depend on the circumstances. If that customer is well known to the teller, if this is a small rural branch where all the clients and employees are very much on first name terms, then that conversation probably wouldn't happen because they know the customer well. But if it was a newcomer to Canada who'd come in and was in a busy metropolis, I would hope that our people would look for opportunities to advise the clients and at least have the conversation with them to see if there's a way they have some needs that aren't being met.
Sure. Under the scenario you described, our tellers do not have sales targets. They're encouraged actively to get to know their clients and understand what's going on in their lives, and then to help position products and services that most appropriately meet those needs. And in some cases, that would mean suggesting a client may want to make an appointment with a financial advisor. In some cases, it just means processing that client and seeing them on their way.
Yeah, see, the issue I have is that it's no secret that if you need a loan or you need investment advice, you can go to a bank. I mean, I don't think that anybody across this country, whether newcomer, whether they're Canadian born and raised here, whether they're elderly, whether they're a student, you know that if you're in need of investment advice, if you're in need of a student loan, a car loan, that you probably call your bank first. So that's why it's troubling that when a customer comes to a bank, that they're just there to conduct their daily banking, that they're obviously bombarded with investment opportunities or opportunities that they may not even know. The second question is this, is that pre-approvals. Why do your banks and your institutions pre-approve clients that aren't asking for the credit limit increases? That's a deceptive practice in itself. That why are you pre-approving somebody for a higher credit limit when they haven't even asked for it? What's the logic behind that at your banks? And if it doesn't go to sales targets, I mean, I give you an example. I walk into one of your branches and I have a credit card, I have a legitimate limit. I don't need a higher limit, but I've been pre-approved. And the person that brings it up to me is a teller who, in this case, is the first time I've met this person. And they think that they know that my financial history and profile well enough to offer me a pre-approval of a substantial increase in my credit line, in my credit card, and a mortgage by the first time I'm coming to deposit a check. Now that is very concerning. And Andrew, you mentioned that when you heard the news that you guys were shocked and awed. The funny thing is, on this side of the house, I was not shocked at all. I have friends that went through business school with me, that worked at a lot of your institutions, and they all know that if you perform, you do very well at the banks, and good for them, right? But if you don't, you're out really quickly. So I want to know why you guys think that pre-approvals of applications, when somebody's not coming to apply for credit, is a legitimate sales technique.
Go down the line. Mr. Pilkington.
Yep, thank you. I think customers have a lot of choice, and in Canada, it's a highly competitive market, and they can choose to borrow or invest with many different institutions, and many Canadians do. So I think having pre-approvals enables customers, if they want to sort of consolidate some of their debt, or they want to consolidate their investments, it actually means less institutions to work with. So that's one of the reasons why we would have pre-approvals.
Yeah, similar. Ultimately, we sit down with a customer and determine what's in their needs. If there's a pre-approval on the file, the majority of customers would be pleased with that, because they would see it as being good service.
Sure. The overarching theme that we convey to our staff is to do what's right for the client. So first of all, CSRs do not have sales targets. Our tellers do not have sales targets, and they don't make the decision on whether somebody has a credit limit increase. In our case, it's generally based on consumer behavior and consumer buying habits. So if somebody's constantly running up at the limit of their credit card, our CSRs would be coached to ask them if they would be interested in discussing a increase in their credit line, and if so, then we will process that.
One of the other things that's concerning with me is that in my general conversations, the one benefit of politics is that you get to meet a lot of people talk to you, a lot of people in your industry talk to us, and they mention a few stories, and I've heard it on more than one occasion, that an employee at one of the big 6 banks committed fraud in terms of that he was using customers' lines of credit, and he was putting the money back before anybody could recognize it, taking it from another customer, putting it back, and it was caught on a rounding error, as in, funny enough, probably somebody like my grandma, who knows exactly what her balance is to the penny, noticed that a penny was missing, and that employee was caught, and that is legitimately the definition of fraud in the Criminal Code of Canada. But yet, all that happened to that employee was that he was in breach of one of your code of conducts, and he was let go. And it was never public information, and it was never reported to the authorities. Is that the standard practice when you guys uncover fraud in your banks?
Let me take that. Not at all. It would depend on the circumstances, clearly, but we look very poorly at any type of fraud. The vast majority of fraud cases we would actually report to the police, and an investigation would start.
Similar, and a breach of our code, as I said, is absolutely non-negotiable in terms of how we would follow that up.
Yeah, similar. Fraud is absolutely something we would not stand for. If an employee was caught engaging in that behavior, they would be terminated. If they were licensed under either MFDA or IROC, we would inform the regulator. And in this instance that you outlined, we would certainly involve corporate security, who would make the decision to involve law enforcement.
My last question.
Sorry, you're already beyond your last question. We already went over time. Turning to a 5-minute round, Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for your testimony today. I would like to just continue on some of the discussions we've had thus far. Now, when Ms. Tedesco came in and said, because I asked her specifically, do you have all the powers you need to run a full investigation? She said yes, which is helpful to me. She also did mention that each one of your CEOs had said that they will give whatever information is required so that she can do her job, and appreciate your being here so we can do ours, just to make sure that these agencies are doing the work that they should be. Now, I've heard a number of that there are systems in check, that there are different levels of, codes of conduct, etc. But given all those things, we still have reports that are allegations, but reports on the news channel outlining that people have felt that something is horribly wrong with their experience of your system. How can you square that between what you've told us here today, that you have scrupulous programs for rooting things out, and that there are still ongoing concerns where the only relief people feel is that they go to the media? To me, I need to know why that exists. So maybe we'll start from my left and we'll move all the way down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said at the beginning, when I heard the media allegations, I felt very troubled, and I felt very troubled that those staff members felt the need to go to the media when we have multiple channels internally for them to go to, which protects their anonymity, which gives them confidentiality. As I said earlier, I went right across the country and asked people, is this the way you feel? Do you feel this pressure? Do you feel these goals? And our employees, the vast majority, feel that's just not the case. So we're not saying we're perfect. In fact, this is a good time for us to sort of stop, pause, reflect, see what else we can do to actually sort of strengthen our controls so that we can absolutely mitigate the risk that you're talking about.
Where are you starting with that? You said you're going to assess and then make some decision points hopefully sooner. So what areas are you looking to improve?
Yeah, so I think the code of conduct, we've all described our various code of conducts. Our code of conduct at TD is actually public. It's on the website. Everybody, as I mentioned earlier, tests to it every year, reads it. I think we can do more to bring that to life on a more weekly, monthly basis with our frontline employees. So through coaching of the front line, be it in the phone channel, be it in the branches. That's an area I'm currently looking at where we can just make this a bit more front and center for people on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would pick up on what we've done in light of the stories. We've redoubled our efforts in a variety of fronts. One of them is with respect to the internal feedback channels. We call it pathways to resolution. We've been very vocal and communicative in that respect, so people know that the outlets that are available to them, confidential if preferred, to tell us about these situations. We have launched global sales principles, which speak very clearly. They come from the code, but they speak more clearly to people in frontline advisory roles. To again just make it very clear about the do's and don'ts. I get weekly reporting now from both our customer and our employee feedback channels on this particular topic. That is not something I had before this. So this is an issue we take very seriously, and I think to Andy's point, it's an opportunity for us to learn and to look at some of the areas where we may need to tune up, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Why weren't you getting the information previous? Why the change now?
On the weekly reporting,
were you getting it monthly before, or were you getting it yearly?
Yeah, no, I was getting monthly reporting before. If I got weekly reporting on the various things that go on in our business, it'd be a lot of reports. This one is one that I've taken particular attention at looking at. It's my accountability that this is set right, so I put the weekly reporting in place.
Wambolt, you need an opportunity on this one too.
Sure. We take the allegations and issues raised through the media very seriously. We investigate any issue that comes forward, irrespective of how it comes forward, including social media or anonymous websites, or through any number of our internal means, very, very seriously. We have a number of formal and informal ways in which we can gather information. Similar to Mr. Pilkington, we constantly are out in our banking network, meeting with our employees, trying to gauge and understand issues that are real to them. Issues that have come to light in the media have never, ever been mentioned, to me anyways, through my tours through the banking center network, or do they ever sort of flash on our internal intelligent monitoring systems.
Can you list some of your formal and informal modes then for getting this information? I'm more particularly interested in the informal ones.
Sure. I go to banking centers frequently, meet with employees frequently, stand behind the counter with our employees frequently, understand how the systems are working for them, understand their mood, understand their attitudes, and often have time away from the front line with them in a meeting room or a coffee room, just asking them what's on your mind, what can we do for you.
Thank you all. Miss O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I have some specific questions to your testimony, so it might not be all three on one question. I'm going to start, though, Mr. Wemble, on the line that you just mentioned in terms of monitoring. With all due respect, you're a senior vice president. Do you really think standing behind the tellers, they're not going to act maybe a little bit differently when you're there than when you're not there? And with that being the case, have you ever done any monitoring with mystery type shoppers?
Yeah, mystery shopping plays a big part in our program. We highlight banking centers that score in the top from our banking center mystery shops on a weekly basis. So it's an active program. All of the banking centers know it's happening. They don't know that it's happening to them, but they know that it's an active program. And they are very excited when they score and are mentioned in our top excellence circle. And
what happens, though, when they're not performing? I would assume that you would, or have you actually, because you have companies that hire these mystery shoppers, so to speak, have to set the terms, the types of questions, those types of things. Have you actually had mystery shoppers go into your branches based on these sales tactics?
The Mystery Shopper program is based on activities that we know get us towards our goal of being a leader in the client experience, as well as activities that we know lead to most likely will lead to a favorable client experience, as well as helping us grow our enterprise.
But sorry, my question is specific to the sales tactics. I don't have a lot of time, so I need to know the specifics. Have you done mystery shopping with the specific objectives to find out if tellers or other bank employees are suggesting products that are not in the best interest of the customer?
Absolutely. That's the point of the mystery shop.
Okay. In regards, my final question for you is in regards to, you mentioned something about the chain of employees being able to make complaints, and their manager is one step. But we heard testimony that managers specifically were rewarded for their branch making sales targets with things like trips, vacations. Does that still happen in branches? Are managers rewarded with trips?
We have an extensive reward and recognition program that's fundamentally based on our balanced scorecard. And the dominant metric on the balanced scorecard, and the first and foremost metric on the balanced scorecard, is the client experience, doing what's right for the client. It's backed up by activities that we know most likely lead to a favorable client experience outcome, as well as activities that can also help grow our enterprise.
We heard so the answer is yes, you still reward, and sales would be in there. And you talk about clients' experience, but we heard a lot of testimony that clients don't even realize, because what is being presented to them is actually a sales target or a sales tactic versus a truly good product that they need. So within that, if sales are a factor and a reward for a manager is to go on a trip, do you really think employees are going to go to that manager and say, I'm having trouble with my sales targets, and therefore you might not win this awesome vacation?
Well, on the subject of trips, we have a number of different prizes and recognition events that that our employees are eligible for. Right across the bank, whether they be frontline staff or back office staff, they can be eligible for this program. And the program is based on adhering to our code of conduct, number one, forwarding our objective on the client experience, as well as those activities that I spoke about to forward a good client experience as well as grow the business. And in terms of an employee feeling that they may jeopardize their manager's attendance or participation in this program, our code of conduct is very clear, and our ethical and professional standards that we ask our team to live up to are very clear on this. If you feel you are being asked to do something inappropriate, tell somebody.
Thank you. Mr. Pilkington, you mentioned specifically in your testimony that TD employees don't offer specific products. So we had testimony, I want to ask you specifically about the testimony we heard the other day, that members of the TD Wealth Management team And apparently this is a public policy, and I've asked for it to be sent to this committee so we'll know if it's public or not. But 2 years ago, employees of TD Wealth Management were told they had to produce a minimum of $2,000 a day in fees and commissions or their pay would be cut. Is that true?
I don't have the exact details of that. What I do know is that wealth is very much a growing business at TD. So we're hiring lots of people, and clearly we want to make sure that the compensation is right. So the people who we hire who come in and are capable of having those long-term client relationships, which are advantageous for the client because it generates wealth for the client, will do better.
Sorry, but my question was fees and commissions. Fees and commissions don't drive wealth for clients. Is it true that salary was based on, at least 2 years ago, that salaries were based on a target of fees and commission, not how well the portfolio is doing for your client, $2,000 a day for fees and commissions?
So that's not my area of expertise or where I work, but I will absolutely go away and get you the answer to that.
I'd appreciate that because that would...
Leave you there, Jennifer. We're over time on your time. We may get a crack later. And Mr. Pilkington, if you can forward us that information, the committee would appreciate it. Mr. Leipert.
Thank you. I really don't have a lot of questions, just a couple of comments and clarification, and I believe my colleague might have another question or two. But first of all, when we started this study, I suspected exactly what has happened. We have testimony by employees or former employees and saying one thing. We have testimony from the employer saying pretty much exactly the opposite. And I suspect that when we have our other three witnesses, it won't change very much. And so one of the things that concerns me is that this committee does not have the investigative powers, and we had the FCAC before us earlier. And I'm glad to hear that that is an extensive undertaking, because I would suspect it's not in anybody's interest to have these rumors continuing to swirl around, and so I'm happy to see that. You know, the other thing that I think is difficult to interpret is at what level does upselling take place within the banks? And I think that's where some of the confusion might come in, because you know, I'll give you a good example. We did a study earlier on so-called tax havens. And consistently throughout that discussion, the phrase tax evasion was interchanged with tax avoidance. And they're two entirely different things. Tax evasion is illegal and tax avoidance is not illegal. It seems to me that in the banking business, upselling product, and you can call it what you want, the teller can, or the employee can call it what they want, but in essence, part of the bank's business is to assist in making the customer more wealthy or doing good for the customer. So I think part of the problem is where some of this is taking place. I just wanted to get clarity from each one of you. I think I heard it right. Upselling does not take place at the teller level. Can you confirm that?
Going across the line, Mr. Wembold.
Our CSRs do not have sales targets. If a CSR is prompted with something based on what the client has disclosed or the client's purchasing behavior or through analytics, they are encouraged to understand what's going on in that client's life and match a need that becomes clear through a discussion with the client and match it with the product and service.
Give me an example of what that would be.
A client comes into one of the banking centers, is speaking with one of our CSRs, is a parent, let's say, says, well, geez, we've just had another child, and I'm saving up for my child's education. CSR may feel it appropriate to say, would you like to meet with somebody qualified to give you investment advice to make sure that you're saving appropriately for your client's or your child's education?
Okay.
McFedrin?
No sales goals on a teller's scorecard, no cross-sell whatsoever.
Mr. Pilkington?
We don't ask our front line to upsell, but we do ask them to seek advice opportunities. And you asked for an example, so I can give you an example where often a customer will come into our branch and say to a teller, I find it really hard to save. I just can't seem to save. And there's a couple of products out there. One of them is called Simply Save, whereby a teller can quickly enroll the customer into a product whereby every time they use their debit card, they actually save a small amount of money. It will go to a savings account. Or there's like a pre-authorized approach where they say, okay, put $10, $20 a week, whatever, into a savings account. So they're some of examples of the advice-based conversations that we look for people to have. It's for the customer's good.
Okay, I'll leave it at there. I think Dan might have a question.
Go ahead, Dan, you got about a minute.
So just briefly, we've talked a little bit about the ombudsperson or ombudsman, depending on which bank you're working at. I'm interested in knowing whether or not, because my understanding is the FCAC can receive a report from the ombudsman if there's an issue or systemically where there seems to be a lot of complaints from a single bank. Do you feel that the current arrangement right now is sufficient? Because some people have suggested that perhaps having an independent or someone that isn't necessarily hired directly by the bank acting just to create that arm's length for those complaints might increase governance. What are your thoughts?
Well, there is an independent industry ombuds office, and I think
I'm speaking about the one that works within your bank as the first line.
Right, and we are pleased with the performance of our ombuds office. I think we make all of our clients and employees aware that it's available for them. It's easily findable on our website. It seems to be working fine. I think we live in a very well-regulated industry. I think in some respects we're the envy of the globe in terms of how our financial system has performed recently, and I think that goes to the credit of our regulators.
Mr. McFedrin?
Yes, so the process to handle complaints, I believe, is effective. There are mechanisms within the bank to escalate if that's, and as I said before, the majority of cases are rectified in that manner, but there's also an opportunity to escalate beyond the bank if a client so chooses.
Yeah, we're looking to save time. The same sort of process as my competitor here. We have a number of levels where if the customer is not satisfied, it will eventually go to an independent arbiter who will actually give a decision, and we'll abide by those decisions in good faith every time.
Thank you all. Mr. Sabera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, everyone. So this past weekend, when I was back home in the riding, I had to go pick up a new credit card because I had lost one. So I went to it was a TD card, and I picked up this pamphlet called Coercive Tide Selling that was right at the front counter. And I was kind of surprised it was there, and I was actually happy it was there. And it relates to Section 459.1 of the Bank Act and what people can't do in terms of someone coming in and tide selling and all that kind of stuff. So I was happy to see that it was there and available for all the customers when they go right to the counter there to make an appointment, not to the teller but to the counter. So I applaud that because that was actually kind of interesting to see. I understand, the way a bank works. I've worked at one for many years. I understand that there are thousands and tens of thousands of Canadians that work there and their livelihoods depend on it. And for the most part, they do a bang-up job, and your customer service satisfaction surveys do that, or show that, excuse me. But obviously, there is a number of employees have gone to what's called Go Public and communicated that they feel that they're being pressured to meet sales targets. On top of that, the FCAC on the 15th of March announced that they'd begin a wholesale review of business practices by the banks, which I'm glad to hear you're cooperating and do so. And we as a committee, I think, will look forward to seeing that report when it comes issued. My question is, has the culture changed in the institutions in a non-written manner that maybe customers don't know sometimes that they're getting a credit line increase, and maybe they're not being communicated for a non-teller type person to meet certain targets and so forth. So has that culture changed? And with that, are there sufficient checks and balances? Because that's what it comes down to. There's sufficient checks and balances that people, yes, are being rewarded, but not at the expense of customers taking on undue credit risk, increased secured or unsecured debt, because we need to ensure that. We need to ensure a safe and sound banking system, which we have in Canada, and we came out of the global crisis unscathed, if I can say that, and to maintain those high levels of satisfaction service. So the culture and the checks and balances sufficient? And we can go across, please.
With you, Mr. Wambold, and go across.
Sure. Our culture is very clear on the tone that we're trying to establish, and that is really to put the client first, to do what's right for the client in every instance. The message could not be clearer from our CEO on down through the organization, that it's about doing what's right for the client first. That's reinforced in our balanced scorecard, which is the primary directional aid that our employees look to understand how they're doing relative to the expectations of the organization. And there are a number of checks and balances in place in the system to make sure that if an employee or a customer feels that something inappropriate has happened, that they can raise the issue through a number of different channels, including completely confidential channels.
James?
Similar, and I would say in the last 3 years or so, our aggressive shift to a more even a more intense focus on customer focus has been clearly communicated through our network. Our people love it. They love this empowerment to look after customer needs. In terms of, so it's very, very clear, as is our code. In terms of the checks and balances, our framework is sound, and I think any sound framework has got diversity to it. So it's got checks and balances at the local level, at the national level, and through customer feedback loops. That said, we're hearing stories, so that it's an opportunity for us to reconfirm and see what we can do even better, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. We're always developing our culture. I mean, the world around us is changing pretty quick, but one common thread for decades now, TD, has been the customer. The customer is at the center of everything we do. An example would be just the number of hours that we're open. We're very, very customer-centric organization, and our CEO and the senior leadership team has actually, over the last year, just developed a new framework for what we are calling shared commitments, and has shared it with the entire bank. And has 5 key foundations. The number one foundation is think like a customer. So that's very much, part of the fabric of what we do at TD. From a checks and balances perspective, you've heard a lot about the checks and balances that we have across all three banks. We think we have very robust processes here, but we're not being complacent. We're not saying that, hey, we're perfect. And I think there's an opportunity now to just look, as I mentioned earlier, to tighten up and make the appropriate tweaks and adjustments so we make it even stronger.
Okay. Can I?
We're quite over, Francisco. Mr. Dussault, for a couple of very quick questions.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et j'aimerais revenir sur les...
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to return to the matter of sales targets, which I believe ultimately favors shareholders rather than customers. In each of your banks, have any employees been fired because of their performance, their sales performance?
Never put an employee on a disciplinary procedure for just as failure to hit a sales target. We don't do that.
Similar targets are balanced, and the way we look at employee feedback is balanced as well.
Similar, any decision to terminate an employee would be taken very carefully, and we would consider it very thoroughly. And sales targets would not be the sole reason why a employee was ever terminated.
Oui, je vous entends, mais bien que ce soit peut-être pas la.
I hear you, but even though it may not be the only reason, some of the witnesses we've heard from have stated that people may have been pushed to leave, or other reasons were evoked to terminate their employment. And on that, when it comes to sales targets, if each of you was speaking to a client and you had to offer two options, one which brings you more money as an employee of the bank, money perhaps, or travel, and then the other option, which might be better for the client but doesn't bring you any money or other recompense. If you were advising someone at one of your branches, which option would you choose? The one that brings you personally something, or the one that's better for the client?
Better for a client every time.
Ditto. Our client satisfaction levels are at their highest they've ever been, and that's for doing that very thing.
Yes, similar answer. We are dedicated towards doing what's right for the client. And our senior leadership, including our CEO, said, it's all about doing what's right for the client. And if that means you don't hit your targets, that would not be our preferred outcome. But if that happens, we're okay with that. Do what's right for the client first.
Thank you all. We will go 5 minutes into the second round because we're 10 minutes late starting. I understand Ms. O'Connell and Mr. Greywall are going to split a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McFadyen, you almost got away from me, but I have one question for you, and then Mr. Greywall is going to ask a question. You mentioned in your testimony that your employees would develop a financial strategy. However, we know, and we've heard testimony to the effect that there's a big difference sometimes in terms and languages. And for example, advisors spelt with an O or spelt with an E have very different requirements. So when employees at Scotiabank are developing a financial strategy, you've said that the client's satisfaction is number one, but when we know that practices are happening with advisors with an O, advisor with an E, how do you ensure that it's actually in the best interest of the client and not whatever, even if it's not a sales target, but whatever product Scotiabank wants to sell at the time?
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. We take regulation very seriously. All of our people are licensed appropriately for what they sell. Our customer experience model is based first and foremost on discovering the needs of a customer. So there is a 4-step process through that model, but first and foremost is the needs of the customer. And the third, I would say, is our people have no product-specific targets. So it is not. It's not done. It's not in their interest to pursue a product sale of any kind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go back to all three of you guys mentioned that it's client first and not profits. The problem is that you guys are in the business of making money, which again, we're not making the banks a target here. We're very much just trying to protect Canadians. And that cross section in which the client's interests at some point do not meet the bank's interests, because the bank is trying to make as much money as they possibly can, and that's your right. And that sometimes comes at the expense of giving sound, adequate advice to a client. My question is this, is that in terms of the upselling that may or may not occur at a teller, are your tellers regulated in terms of, do they have education, or is there courses that they take, like the CSC course, before they make any comment on investment decisions, even if it's a referral?
Asking me, or
I'm asking all three of you.
Sure. Our tellers. So the surest that you began the question with a profit objective. I mean, the surest way to achieve business success is through the success of your customers, and that's exactly the how our people are focused. In terms of tellers have no product-specific goals, and hence anything that they do In terms of referral, as you discussed, it's just that. It's a referral to have a discussion, but no sale goes through a teller.
Similarly, our tellers do not offer financial advice with regards to investing. Any of our advisors with an O in our retail network that are offering financial advice are licensed under MFDA or IROC to do so, but our CSRs do not offer financial advice in terms of how a client should or should not invest their money.
Yeah, our CSRs wouldn't offer investment advice. To your question about when they refer, they are trained extensively when they join the bank on when is the appropriate time and opportunity to make a referral and when it's not. So they go through extensive training before they actually go out onto the front line.
Yeah, but in your case, Andrew, there actually are sales targets for CSRs. So that if an individual came into the bank, like my example before, and a CSR sees it, oh wow, this guy's pretty wealthy, I should refer him to an investment banker or an investment advisor because that's going to help me achieve my sales target, or a mortgage representative or a credit application, etc. That would take place at TD, right?
There will be times when the tellers will actually refer customers to investment advisors, wealth advisors, when they see the advice opportunities there. Yeah. And often it's actually driven by the customer themselves.
Yeah, but the issue I have with that is this, it's plain and simple, that certain people that come into your bank don't want investment advice, and they're not comfortable with their own financial literacy. They will actually think that, yes, the banks are very smart people, and in terms of then get the advice from somebody, oh, well, you should meet this individual, they'll help you with their investment advice. And because they trust the bank so much, they're lured into these investments that may not be in their best interest in the first place. And that's the issue. The issue is this, is why is a teller, even if they're not giving investment advice, even off a corporate or a client profile, making a referral? Because in 2017, if somebody wants to make investments, I'm sure they can figure out how to make that investment. There almost should be a Chinese wall at a bank to say that if a client asks for investment advice, the teller would refer them directly when asked. But it shouldn't be the other way, as in, oh, I see that you have X number of dollars in your bank, maybe you should speak to a financial advisor. And I think that's the cross-section of why you guys had the issues with the sales practices in the first place, is because the CSRs at the ground level in your banks, in order to make their bonuses, in order to get promoted, in order to become branch managers and eventually appear before this committee as executive senior presidents, they have to sell an amount at the CSR level. And that's the issue that we're having.
I cut you there. Does any of the three want to respond to that comment?
I'll respond there was a lot of comments there. One of them around that everybody in 2017 should feel comfortable around making investments. We know, I mean, we've surveyed 13,000 Canadians, and the survey shows us that 79% of Canadians don't feel confident in their financial future. So they're actually looking for help. And what we train our tellers to do, and all of our employees, is when they see the opportunity for advice to actually help customers, is to actually refer them to an expert. The customer doesn't have to go with that referral. The customer doesn't have to take the expert's advice, but we feel it's part of our duty to our customers to actually help them with their finances and help them, save time, save money, and make money.
Anyone else?
Oh, the advice is actually a good thing, and some of our most engaged customers did receive our advice, and it's helped them, it's benefited their lives. So advice is a good thing that we provide.
Okay, I do have one question that really relates to the hearing itself. I mean, we're holding this hearing to a certain extent into bank practices, in part because of the media story, which also led, I think all of us have got quite a number of calls, so there is some dissatisfaction out there. And one of the difficulties for us is sometimes it can be I said, you said kind of thing. We understand that. And I think we have 20-some submissions that have come in that are in translation, and we haven't We haven't actually seen them yet. But there is a concern. And I guess from my point of view, and I think probably yours as well, oversight is important to give confidence to the public that bank practices are appropriate, whether it's in labor standards, provincial and federal, or whether it's practices surrounding pressured selling and investments, etc. Are you folks saying that the oversight is adequate at the moment? Is it too much? Is it too little? Where do you folks stand on that? Because we are going to have to, at the end of the day, we're going to have to express an opinion or a recommendation either for more oversight, that things are all right, that there maybe should stronger ombudsman. I don't know, but I'm sure you would agree that if the Canadian public is confident that oversight is appropriate, it's good for you and us too. Any thoughts?
I'll begin. It's important for you to know that we believe in strong regulation. And regardless of who the regulator is that we're working with, that's something we take very seriously. We think the best thing that we can do is have our house in order in a way that abides by that regulation, such that as the oversight occurs, it's reconfirming as opposed to anything else. I would say that the FCAC and OSFI are doing a very thorough review right now, and we welcome that review. And the findings will come, and I think we should we'll be able to act on those findings.
Okay, with that, thank you very much for your testimony. We'll suspend for a couple of minutes while the next witnesses come forward. Meeting suspended. We'll reconvene, call the meeting to order. We'll have to ask the media to depart, or the cameras to depart, please. Greg? All right. Just to again refer for the record purposes that we are doing the study on consumer protection and oversight in relation to the Schedule I banks, and we have with us three the Schedule I banks in this second session: BMO Financial Group, National Bank of Canada, and the Royal Bank of Canada. And we will start with you, Mr. Dushek. I'm not sure if I got that right, but the floor is yours. And
Thank you.
You're with the Royal Bank.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kirk Duchek. I'm the Executive Vice President of Regional Banking for RBC. I am responsible for almost 25,000 frontline retail and commercial banking employees who live and work in more than 1,200 communities across this country. Many Canadians know RBC as their local bank, as well as a strong business leader, a company that has existed for almost as long as Canada itself. We are recognized for the quality of our advice and solutions, for being a respected employer, for being a champion of diversity and innovation, and for our commitment to this country's youth and future prosperity. Most recently, we were honored by the fact that our employees and clients have enabled us to be acknowledged for the third time as Global Retail Bank of the Year by Retail Bank International. While we're proud of these accomplishments, we do not take them for granted. We don't take for granted the role we play in this country and the role we play in the lives of our employees and in the lives of our clients. It's why we constantly listen to them, use their experiences and feedback to ensure we continue to deliver the advice and service Canadians expect from us and deserve from us. And therefore, we welcome this hearing to share what we believe, how we operate, and most importantly, to learn if there's an opportunity to do more. We operate with a fundamental belief that how we achieve results is as important as what we achieve. And we could not sustain leading employee satisfaction, where 95% of our employees say they're proud to work for RBC and support our values, and generate leading client loyalty results if we didn't work hard every day to make sure that belief is a reality. So we were disheartened to hear reports characterizing a working environment in a way that is not consistent with our culture or our values, with how we do business, or the experience we want to create for our employees and the experience we want to create for our clients. We deliver advice, solutions, and services to more than 12 million Canadian clients every day. And we need to deliver it with the highest accuracy in a way that not only continually meets but exceeds our clients' expectations. Of the 2.4 million accounts that we opened last year in 2016 within regional banking, of those 2.4 million accounts that we opened, less than 0.05% of clients escalated a concern about the way their account was opened. Regardless, we take every client interaction and concern seriously. Clients can raise their concerns with the manager. They can raise concerns online. They can raise concerns through our independent client care teams, through our regular client surveys, and by contacting the RBC Ombudsman. And if clients still are not satisfied, they are able to turn to an external ombudsman as well. We place the same attention and focus on our employees. We listen to them through their managers and our leaders. We listen to them through our human resources channels and advisors and our confidential employee ombudsman, and through our annual employee opinion survey, where we hear from more than 90% of our employees every year. We invest in embedding our culture and our values, including our values of client first and our values of integrity. They are embedded in our annual Code of Conduct certification, a requirement for every employee, and they are embedded in our performance and ongoing awareness programs, so we foster the right behaviors and the right activities, one that places clients' interests at the center of all that we do. We also create a respectful work environment where employees are encouraged to speak up, to seek guidance and clarity, and be assured that they will be supported in doing the right things. As I said, we listen to and learn from our employees and our clients, and we investigate and take action where we need to. to preserve the trust our employees and clients place in us. Preserving that trust is foundational to how we do business as a company, and we believe it's foundational to how we succeed. Thank you for your attention, and I would be pleased to answer questions from the committee. Thank you,
sir. Ms. Blanchette with National Bank.
Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee, thank you for having me today. Mon nom est Lucie Blanchet, première vice-présidente.
My name is Lucie Blanchet, Senior Vice President, Distribution Solutions and Processes Retail Banking. To begin, I'd like to point out that we have carefully followed the events over the past month which led to the hearings today. We're very sensitive to what has been said, and our business model is based on trust that we've established over a long period of time, and which we continue to renew. I'd like to present over the next few minutes the National Bank's activities in the context in which we do our business. Selling is important to the success of the bank, but integrity is a primary objective of the bank. The National Bank was created in 1859 in Quebec City and provides integrated bank services to 2.3 million people and over 130,000 businesses. And we manage over $239 billion. And we also have 100 securities offices. We work in Quebec, New Brunswick, and Ontario. So this adds another presence in certain cities, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Vancouver. The bank also shows leadership in certain areas, be it technology, energy, real estate, health, or government funding. Our bank is a significant employer with over 21,000 employees, and last year we got a 12th nomination as the People's Choice Employer. The bank is active in all activities where it is present. Last year, it spent more than $25 billion on various Canadian organizations. It's principally active in Canada, where most of its revenue comes from, 85%. Our business has been constantly evolving. Our customers want to interact with us in a personalized way, the way they want and when they want. Our ambition is to give them a distinctive experience which is based on accessibility and the interactivity of our work. We want to continue to develop the necessary nimbleness to meet their demands and needs. Our organization is based on 3 pillars: the balance of stakeholders, sound management, and good client service. All this is reflected in our performance management. Our customers, our employees, and our shareholders, in fact, our community and our regulators. The balance among these players helps to assure our bank going forward. And all these values are communicated bank-wide. We insist on the respect of our values, rigor, integrity, allow for a work environment which is stimulating for our employees. Risk management is also at the heart of our operations and as such is an integral part of our business. Finally, ethics and integrity play an absolutely important role in the bank's operations and in its work going forward. We highly value the trust put in our bank. When people are hired, They have to adhere to our code of ethics. We expect it of every employee, every manager. The bank has various mechanisms which allow customers and employees to report any lack of integrity. There are mechanisms in place for them to report these things. We have our compliance section, our ombudsman, and we have a yearly survey on our performance. Customers could count on employees at all our service outlets. We have a customer ombudsman, and we also have our satisfaction survey. These practices allow us to maintain a stimulating work atmosphere and one based on trust in our employees and in our customers, but we're constantly looking for ways to improve this. In conclusion, we're very sensitive to the circumstances to have led to this hearing today. The National Bank's corporate culture is based on values and sound risk management. This has helped us to provide a framework for the governance of our bank and as well as the daily activities of our employees. Mr. Chairman, it will be my pleasure to answer any questions you may have.
With BMO.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Orbach. I'm responsible for distribution in our personal and commercial business in Canada. So that would be the 940 branches in Canada, as well as our commercial bank, and the 12,000 employees on our teams. I'm pleased to join my counterparts at today's hearing and to provide BMO's perspective and experience on the issue of sales practices. What we've all heard in recent news reports is disappointing. We do take this matter very seriously. The issues expressed are not consistent with our approach of delivering a great customer experience. We strongly believe that our practices are oriented towards helping our customers. BMO's vision is to be the bank that defines great customer experience. We pursue this vision by focusing on building and strengthening our long-term relationship with each of our customers. Fundamental to these relationships is listening closely to our customers, making sure that we understand their needs and that we see things from their perspective so that we can help them manage their financial needs now and in the future. Frankly, we can't do that if we are selling products and services that our customers don't need. That's not the right thing for our customers, and it's not the right thing for our employees. Instead, we believe that we're in the business of helping our customers choose products and services. The question of whether a product or a service is right is measured not by a sales goal, but by our promise. We're here to help. At BMO, we know that the only way to deliver on customer promise is in ensuring that our employees are fully engaged and motivated. We are people first and bankers second. We strive to put others first through listening and understanding one another's perspectives. We ensure that our employees have the knowledge, the skills, and the support required to deliver a great customer experience. It is also important, though, to have a robust set of measures and governance in place to make sure that what we believe is happening in our customer interactions is in fact happening. To that end, we have created a culture that is anchored on our customer experience vision and reinforces that we must always do the right thing. Our employee goals and how we evaluate performance are balanced between the what we are trying to achieve, and the how we achieve our goals by ensuring that our approach is always focused on our customer and their unique needs. This approach to goal setting is also reflected in a number of criteria, including customer experience, risk management, demonstrating our values, and of course, performance. We have systems and monitoring in place to ensure that our sales are driven by customer need and usage. We have a defined process for customers to raise and escalate concerns, including the involvement of independent bodies. Each concern is investigated and actioned. We also have audits and reviews of our policies and our processes to ensure that we have the proper integrity of our practices in place. The rigor with which we safeguard our policies and our processes reinforces our confidence in the integrity of BMO's practices. And we have fostered a culture where we are all protected from retaliation. Everyone at BMO can voice concerns without fear. Most importantly, we continuously invest in our employees to ensure that they have the knowledge and the skills to help them help our customers. Mr. Chairman, BMO welcomes the opportunity to be part of this discussion, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orbach. Starting then with Mr. Ouellette, 7-minute round.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, for coming here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to ask a few questions. Mr. Dutzjak, I would like to just focus on the RBC for the next 7 minutes, so the other ones can take a relax. You mentioned 0.05% of cases were escalated. I was wondering how many of those cases, when you do reporting, are reported to regulators?
Those are cases within RBC. The 0.05%, which is roughly 650 cases on the 2.4 million, are ones that we report internally. There are other reporting mechanisms where a client escalates a concern beyond, let's say, an advisor or a manager, or they escalate a concern past our client care group, our independent client care group, to the ombudsman, and then off to the independent ombudsman. So I will share with you those statistics. So our ombudsman last year, so this are cases that got below or beyond our client care team, was 817 cases last year were new, and 735 were closed. Those cases are consistent with what we would have had in recent years. And then from that to the external and independent ombudsman, there was 70 cases in 2015 and or 69 and 77 in 2016.
Is it appropriate not to report every case to a regulator so that we can get a better feel for what's going on in the marketplace, so that if there's metadata that's going on, we can follow it more closely instead of just what is reported? And it's not to hold the banks.
Oh, for sure.
Is
Yes.
there?
Our records are available to all of our regulators, the FCAC and OSCE, and where there are serious issues or breaches, we do report them onward to the MFDA or IROC if it's a regulated employee. And we are currently in the midst of a review with FCAC and OSCE, and we're open to working with them and making improvements.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering if we could talk about evaluations of employees.
Mm-hmm.
And so we heard from other banks that previous to this that sales are not the only component. I was wondering if you could describe the other components that go into the evaluation of an employee very quickly.
Thank you. Yes, there are. There's the ultimate job description of the employee that clearly articulates their mandate and their code of responsibilities, their job description. It also includes a listing of their skills and proficiencies that they need to have and to demonstrate so that they can provide service and advice to clients on their area of responsibility. Those are the things that generally, for a branch employee or a call center employee, would drive their base salary and their merit improvements in their base salary. And then when it comes time to the annual bonus amount, which is in the range for an average branch employee, is in the range of 8 to 10%-ish of their total compensation, their total reward, there are really three components that we look to there. Things that I would describe as activities and behaviors, or client experience activities and behaviors. They are the things that ultimately create a better client experience, the number of clients you connect with, the tools you use to deliver advice objectively to that client, verbatim feedback we might get on that advisor from clients, and then we go to client loyalty and then to business outcomes.
Client loyalty and business outcomes. I was wondering if you, in the call centers, if you do sales coaching every week or weekly with your employees.
Yeah, there's two levels of coaching that occur. One is through the direct leader or manager, and then the other is through listening to calls and coaches that provide regular training. And those coaches are working day in and day out, providing lessons and coaching to our call center employees.
So if That's important to create a culture. So if you're doing sales coaching all the time, that does create a certain culture where you're all of a sudden you gear an employee, you condition them, behaviorism, towards sales are important, and you emphasize that over and over again. What happens if there's an employee who doesn't feel comfortable with the sales practices that are asked of them? If they have a complaint, how would they go about then making a complaint to someone?
Yes. So I will respond or react to your first reference, is that the coaching is in relation to the client experience and the way we uncover customer needs and the way we address customer needs, and sales is an outcome, or business outcomes are an outcome of that. There's a variety of ways that employees can raise concern. They can raise concern through their manager. They can raise concern online. They can call our employee relations group and reach out to them for advice and counsel. They can speak to the manager's leader. And then there's a whistleblowing or different hotlines that our employees can reach out to raise concern if they're not comfortable with any part of our business, including their goals and objectives.
So how many complaints do you then get through the hotline and through those other mechanisms? Because often when you're an employee of some system, it sometimes takes an awful lot of courage to complain about something or to find a culture of acceptance. People often want to keep their heads down, be the round peg in the round hole, and not disturb the waters, because they'd like to keep their jobs. Because if you become disturbance, you often end up with lower performance evaluation reports, and you're out the door. So how does, do you have statistics on any of those things, or on how those, on that?
I do not have the exact numbers of calls into our employee relations center with me today. I'd be happy to get those. But we do keep track of those calls from employees and managers into our employee relations center and investigate those fully. I would also put forward that our best source of employee feedback are our managers and are our regional leaders, who are also accountable for our code of practice, our conduct, the kind of client experience we're trying to create, and for building our employee skills and capabilities. And we listen actively to not just our employees, but we also listen actively to our leaders to understand where there are cracks or opportunities for improvement.
In some of your call centers, where there's, for instance, over a large number of employees, do you actually have an HR person on staff in each place? Because I've actually heard from people who are working for the RBC that in these call centers, in fact, that there isn't someone there's only a phone line, and that was only that they didn't have really anything, and they didn't even conduct annual reviews with some of the employees about their performance. It was just talk about sales, sales, sales. So I'm kind of, you're saying one thing and I'm hearing another thing from the employees, and I was just wondering if you could, sometimes things don't always go up to the top. How could you describe that discrepancy of what's going on?
Yeah, as I referenced earlier, there are coaches and there are leaders in all of our advice centers or call centers that do actively listen to our employees. From a human resources perspective, there are a variety of channels for them. There are a variety of channels where you can call, where our employees anywhere in the country, whether you're in a branch or a call center, can call the Employee Relations Center for support.
And I guess just a very, very short question. I was wondering if you could provide this committee with actual performance evaluation tools that you use to see actually how each of the banks actually evaluate employees. Because in the military we have a point system where we use to promotion and for merit-based, and how we go about establishing it. And I'd love to see what the banks do. Now you can submit it obviously and perhaps in confidence to the committee. I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, how that would work, but I think that would be appropriate for us to actually gain a better understanding about how you actually go about evaluating employees and see the weighting about promotions and how that goes about, to see how people move forward in the organization.
Is that possible for the banks to do, that doesn't compromise their commercial interests?
Whatever you require, we're happy to provide.
Okay, then if the banks could then provide that information to the clerk, that would be helpful. And you had an earlier question that you asked for information as well, Robert. Do you want that too?
Yes, please.
And FCAC and OSFI review underway, and it is comprehensive, as was referenced earlier, and all of these materials as well as the ongoing monitoring practices and calibration practices for these programs is being reviewed as part of that as well.
Okay, thank you both. Mr. Deltel.
Mr. Chair, Madame, Messieurs, be welcome to your House of Commons. Gentlemen, don't take it personally, but I will ask my question to Madame Blanchette, puisque nous allons avoir le plaisir de parler ensemble en français.
And we will have the pleasure of speaking French together. Can you hear me? Yes, could you speak a little more loudly, please? Well, I'll say what I said last week. You know, I'm so modest and reserved in the House of Commons that my voice doesn't really carry, so I'll try to speak a little more loudly. Ms. Blanchette, as a key person at the National Bank, you know that there have been reports in the media which have been extremely harsh vis-à-vis the Canadian banks. And this committee listened to witnesses last week who really gave us cause for alarm because they said still today there was a great deal of pressure put on bank employees to sell financial products even if they put people in a dangerous financial situation. Can you tell me why, in your opinion, why aren't banking services a form of service like another? If you go to a shoe store, people who work in a shoe store have to sell as many pairs of shoes as they can, but your people don't have any pressure put on them? Well, our approach is that we work in the interest of the customer and we work according to the needs of the customers, so solutions will be the most relevant ones for them. And our customers are asked to be proactive about their needs, and we work with them in all of our interactions. Well, we understand that you have internal audit services. In the various banking institutions, conversations between an employee and his customer or her customer are recorded. Is this correct? Yes, everything at our call center is recorded. And depending on the customer's situation, he or she may have access to the recording. So there are people who can listen to this. So there are people who can listen to it, people in your business, in order to better inform your employees and make sure that things are done the way they should be? Well, we do use recordings of calls in order to coach our employees to give better service, and it's also for our internal needs, for internal audits and for oversight. And management uses this so that we have a third line of defense and a proper interpretation of any situation we may run into. These people of this third line, are they employees of the National Bank, paid by the National Bank? Yes. Our third line of defense are employees of the National Bank. And it's important to know that this is an independent sector. For example, our internal audit or oversight reports independently. We also have an ombudsman, and this is also an independent sector. Well, if the third line were truly independent and were not paid by the employer, do you not think it would allow for greater autonomy and greater moral authority? Well, as I mentioned when I gave my presentation, a sound risk management is part of our business model, and we take very seriously and work in close collaboration with all sectors in order to constantly adhere to our principles. Well, would you want employees of the third line to be not employees of the National Bank? Well, I'd say no. Why? Because they are very close and very aware of our practices, and these employees of the third line of defense are very aware of the values in our organization. They have access to all material that is available, And there's great transparency with respect to all this. So I would say no, I don't see any need for that. Well, how would you assess the percentage of risk of error? And I'm talking about somebody who might punch in the wrong number. But what about somebody using pressured selling? Because it wasn't people from the outside who came and gave testimony here, and it wasn't people who are disconnected from reality calling us in our riding offices. There are Canadians who have been dealing with problems of pressured selling. Now, you deal with this on a daily basis, but from the other side, and can you not see that there are people who have been victims of pressured selling?
Well, I don't have that information with me right now. I can confirm that when it comes to evaluating our employees' performance, operational quality and risk management are an integral part of this performance evaluation process. And this is just as important as meeting financial targets. With that in mind, I would say that there is not undue pressure. Besides, it goes against our ethics code totally to place undue pressure on our employees. Does this mean that pressured selling is not a subject that you have had to consider regularly or urgently over the last year? Except what came out on CBC. Exactly. And the National Bank has not been the objective of any of these reports, but we do take this very seriously because it affects the credibility of our industry. But I would say no. We have also carried out internal work as well. We cannot remain indifferent to the situation, and this work confirms that there is not a systemic problem with sales practices. Thank you very much.
Monsieur
7 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et en fait,
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to mention that the National Bank was not brought up in the Radio-Canada reports. Now, to come back to what I said earlier, to our other witnesses from the major banks about the internal culture that we've heard about, it can be very problematic because some say that they have a client-first culture, but other witnesses have said that there's a profits-first culture, which puts meeting targets ahead of everything else. So I'm trying to reconcile those two visions in order to understand what the true culture is, so that we can really understand what's going on inside the banks and not just what it might seem to be. So can I confirm that each of your banks has some kind of target for sales for employees? Can you confirm with a yes or no whether that's the case in your banks?
Said earlier, across client experience activities and behaviors, client loyalty, and sales or business outcomes. It's a combination of those three elements that we believe are more controllable by the employee, but ultimately are the recipe to create a client experience that keeps our customers' interests at the center. And like others have referenced, every one of us are held to a code of conduct that places our customers at the center of all that we do. And we also believe that providing advice and solutions to clients that they need to achieve their goals today and over their lifetime, and helping, our key ingredients to building long-term relationships with our customers. And we can't do that without highly engaged and highly enabled employees. And as has been talked about before, as I referenced in my opening, we spend a lot of time listening and monitoring and making ongoing adjustments to our programs to preserve that balance of building long-term relationships with our customers and enabling our employees to be successful.
Blanchet.
Oui, alors c'est important de mettre les objectifs financiers.
It's important to put financial targets in context. in the context of our system of performance management, which is 100% aligned with our corporate goals and fundamental parts of our values, which the well-being of our stakeholders. To help one stakeholder to the detriment of another could ultimately endanger the long-term well-being of our organization in the middle and long terms. There are 5 aspects to our performance management system, and if you're interested, I could state them. No, I do want to put that in perspective. So the first aspect of performance management, just the performance evaluation system, is customer satisfaction. Then there is risk management. In third place, there are the company's values. Fourthly, employee engagement. And finally, financial objectives. Financial objectives do not have a greater weight than the other aspects. In fact, the most important one is the company's values.
We do have goals, and the goals are very much balanced. Back to my vision about being the bank to define great customer experience, a strong focus for us is tied to the actual satisfaction of our customers. We're trying to earn their loyalty over a long period of time. And so to that end, as we think about goals, we make sure that the goals are balanced between CE, risk measures, performance, and of course the how, which is making sure they're being consistent to our values, our articulation of what we call being BMO, which is about how we achieve this great customer experience. My final comment about this is we do find in our business that people want to know what's expected of them. They value our culture, they like what they do in our bank, and they want to know what is expected around how am I successful in this role, and it's the balance of the measures I've described.
Mais est-ce que vous ignorez donc, par vos réponses, je peux...
So your responses seem to indicate that you are not aware of the fact that having sales objectives can create a problem within the institution. That some people, in order to meet those targets, find themselves forced to perform actions that are not entirely acceptable. And that these sales targets constitute a systemic problem. And we've heard that from witnesses. It becomes a systemic problem given that those targets, well, not encourage, but almost encourage disobedience of certain rules on the part of employees. Do you recognize that problem? That exists when the bank's culture is overly focused on sales targets and any kind of recompense that's associated with the sale of financial products. The most important thing is that ensuring that financial targets do not have a weight that is out of proportion with other aspects that are important. The other thing is that when it comes to performance management, is part of the ecosystem of the company. It's not all alone. So it needs to be accompanied by solid governance with various independent checks and balances. We also need robust HR practices that are applied consistently throughout the organization. And we must also consider the long-term well-being of the institution. It's that entire ecosystem that must be taken into account when we consider financial targets. And could perhaps Mr. Orbach could tell us about that financial ecosystem. There have been financial reports, or there have been public reports about the fact that some of your employees were shaming and bullying, or were being shamed and bullied if they did not meet their objectives. They were placed on a separate list of underperforming employees, or even on a whiteboard in the branch, so that other employees around them could see who were the lowest performers in the group. Could you tell us about that? Do you really feel that this means that customers are put first? Or does this really put objectives and profit first?
Mr. Arbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dussault, I'd reinforce the vision and the approach we take in our company. And I know this is validated by very strong engagement of our teams who do believe that we are strongly focused on doing what's right for our customers. And the behaviors you're describing would not be consistent with our values, would not be consistent with our approach, which is about making sure that we are, first of all, showing empathy with our teams. It's one of our core values. I mentioned earlier we have a very clear articulation about responsibility, integrity, diversity, and empathy. And empathy is a really core component of it. And so the leadership behaviors that you're describing, are not reinforcing what we believe so passionately, which is that we have to get it right for our teams first. Because if we have engaged teams, they in turn will deliver great experience to our customers. These things are inextricably linked. And so this idea that we must have teams that are engaged and happy to work there, and what you're describing would not be consistent with that.
Thank you. Thank you all. Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I want to ask a question that's similar to Mr. Dussault's line of questioning. At the branch level, you're all senior VPs or executive VPs. How do you ensure from the top down that the behavior at the branch level is appropriate and fitting with these values? And Mr. Dussault used the example of shaming on a whiteboard. We also heard testimony, and you three have been consistent with the earlier three representatives from the bank saying that sales are not the only factor in performance reviews. However, it's a factor, and what happens, we've heard testimony from employees that say, no, they don't, branch managers don't explicitly say your sales are bad. We heard testimony that if they didn't meet their sales targets, the branch manager or their supervisor would call them into the office, try to talk to them about getting their sales up. Then, if they still didn't get their sales up, they'd have a note in their file saying they were a troublemaker or they don't work well with others. Well, that would then go to one of those other categories of performance. But how do you actually ensure that the branch managers or supervisors are actually recording the disciplinary action appropriately, especially considering a branch manager or supervisor's bonus and trips, as I said in the previous panel, are contingent on the overall branch meeting some of their targets. So how do you make sure that if these are truly the policies from the top, that is actually trickling down and ensuring that at every level that there's not some manipulation of people who aren't hitting their sales targets?
Give you. One of those is all employee corrective action cases are reviewed and managed by our Employee Relations Center, where the manager will call in and review the case, and those individuals in employee relations will coach that manager either on handling it, or they will help objectively assess that case to ensure that we're being fair and we're being balanced with that employee. We also, as I said earlier, we do an annual employee survey, and we do consistently roundtables where regional vice presidents, regional presidents, even myself will be in market to listen, to try to understand where there are issues and opportunities. But specific to the employee survey, we review not only the scores on that survey right down to the manager level, but we also review the verbatim comments, looking for the nature of concerns that employees might have, so that, again, we can use that information to either coach a manager or ensure improvement plans are put in place at that branch level to identify issues or to allow us to learn and enhance our programs overall.
So I'm going to stop you there. Is that confidential, those surveys?
Yes.
It's confidential?
Fully confidential.
Okay. I'm going to move on, but if anyone else wants to jump in, you can in this next question because it's also relatively broad. But my colleague mentioned, Mr. Dussault, somewhat compared, a shoe store and the sales targets of a shoe store. However, I have and this is not the first time there's been testimony and conversations around the appropriateness of commissions or sales targets. I have a real problem with that when there's endless amounts of shoe stores. There's not a lot of regulation, I know. And so there's a big difference when you have, a private company or private enterprise who wants to solely focus on sales and profits. But when we're talking about banking, there's a lot, for example, not just anybody can open up a financial institution. Not just anybody gets the backing of the federal government and Canadian tax dollars, essentially, to ensure that it's stable and regulated in a way that protects everybody. So do you share that same view that it should be profits first and sales targets are a good way to ensure your employees are meeting the objectives of the bank? Or do you actually see that there is a service you owe to Canadians given that you have protections provided by Canadians as well?
It's very important to have the context as to what we're trying to do in branches. And what we're trying to do in our branches, and I believe we're doing this well, is to deepen the relationships by guiding our customers and to never, and I want to be very clear here that we would never suggest selling products that are not appropriate for the customer. That's just not consistent with who we are as a company, and it's not how you build long-term relationships with customers. And so if I could just perhaps describe a little bit about what we're talking about in a branch, it's asking questions of the customer to better understand and then be in a position to guide them with solutions that are appropriate for them. Because as you know, banking can be very complicated. I know that this committee has talked about financial fluency, an area that we're very strongly committed to at BMO. These are very complicated matters. And so oftentimes when we have these conversations with our customers, they actually didn't know that there were other solutions available for them. And to take it one step further, we've talked extensively about how we measure customer satisfaction, how we want to make sure we're getting it right for our customers. They tell us very clearly in this research that in fact, when we do offer solutions, when we guide our customers and talk about things that they didn't know about, they're actually more satisfied from a measurement perspective because we've taken that interest to deepen the relationship, not to sell products inappropriately, but to better understand their specific needs.
Does anyone want to jump in? I don't want to.
I'd be happy
I have
to.
another question if you...
I would just underscore a comment that I made in my opening comments. We have a duty to this country and we have a duty to our customers. And we understand that. And we have a privileged position in their lives. And with that comes ensuring we do well by our clients, both in terms of helping them live their lives better today, but also in terms of helping them achieve their longer-term goals. And with that comes a responsibility to ensure that the advice and the solutions that we provide are appropriate to that customer. That's at the core of who we are. And our vision statement includes being among the world's most trusted institutions. And our purpose statement is to help clients do better and ultimately thrive and help communities develop and ultimately prosper. Those are the things that guide our actions. Our goal is to build long-term client relationships. Clients with a checking account have been with RBC on average of 19.5 years. It's those types of long-term relationships are what we're trying to build. And watch for the behavior and the issues that you're calling out and that employees and clients call out when they raise concerns with us to ensure that we're not only doing well by our employees, but we're also doing well by our clients for the long term and for this country.
You're at a time. Ms. Blanchet, did you want to add something?
Well, same here. La première chose que nos clients nous demandent, et c'est consistant.
The first thing that our clients want, and this goes across all of our client satisfaction surveys, is that they want us to be relevant and anticipate their needs. And they, in fact, want us to surpass their expectations.
5-minute rounds.
And thank you to our witnesses for coming here and for explaining a little bit of your experience and some of your thoughts on this important matter. So, again, we've had 3 other bank employees come in today to explain the practices. And again, we heard that there are systems, there are obviously there are codes of conduct that need to be followed, and this is something that every bank takes very seriously because, again, it's banking is a trust industry, and it's more highly competitive. There's more options available. If people don't even like the color of your new logo, I'm sure that there will be lots of people that would be love to take their business. That being said, I still have heard two different sets of responses. One is that there are these serious allegations that employees themselves are making to different news program, and then there are the internal systems you speak about, and I'm trying to square the two of them together. Now, the last panel that came forward said that they again take these allegations quite seriously and have revisited their approach at their respective bank. So the first question is, how do you square the allegations that have been made quite public by certain employees of certain banks with your presentation, your practices that you've portrayed here today? We'll start with that.
Mr. Orbach first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be clear that we're not in any way trying to be dismissive of what we've heard. These are very large businesses, and in fact, we do over 200 million interactions every single year. And while I want us to get it right every single time, we don't. And what I've tried to describe is more the approach we take when, in fact, concerns are raised. And Mr. Albus, you described two scenarios. One scenario is around our employees and what you've heard from employees. And in this perspective, it's so deeply embedded in our culture, and we're constantly encouraging our teams to feel free to speak up and be candid, and we have many mechanisms in order to do so. And so some of these are confidential and anonymous if employees are not feeling comfortable in talking to their manager or their manager's manager, or perhaps to me. And so we do have a lot of rigor around these approaches. However, from time to time, there is inappropriate behavior. My assurance to the committee is that when these situations are identified, they're thoroughly investigated and reviewed, case by case, and appropriate action is taken every time, particularly in terms of the spirit of what we're trying to do as a company. With respect to customers, if I may just go to that side of it, we also have many mechanisms to raise concerns with our customers, both in the branch and, of course, higher levels of escalation, which might include me or executive resolution teams, local leadership in the market, and, of course, our ombudsman for situations that we don't feel can be adequately resolved. And finally, and these are quite minimal in nature of the overall number, a very clear path to escalate, as you know, to the Ombudsman for financial institutions.
Ms. Blanchet?
Ms. Blanchet?
Oui, bien sûr. Nous avons vraiment plusieurs mécanismes.
We have a number of mechanisms that our employees can use to let us know about any complaints or issues that they have or ethical problems. We also have lower level managers. Our bank managers are very present on the ground. We also have an HR line, which is independent and centralized. We have a labor relations sector that employees can call directly. We also have the corporate security and the compliance sectors. We also have the employee ombudsman as a final recourse. Something we have at our bank which really distinguishes us is that we're very close to our employees. Since we're a smaller organization, management has for a number of years met 3,000 to 5,000 employees every year, and we have 300 or 400 activities that management carries out directly with employees. We have thus various mechanisms that allow us to take the pulse of the labor climate in our organization, and employees feel comfortable using these methods because when we do, we act to implement the improvements that they suggest.
I'll build on the previous comments made. We do take this process very seriously, and we take all feedback we get from clients and employees seriously. Through the work that we've done, whether it's investigations around potential fraud or falsification of signatures or references to selling clients products they don't need, our review has demonstrated there is not a systemic issue. They do happen periodically, and we have mechanisms in place to listen and watch for those, but it's not systemic. The thing that I would say, though, is that we also use this to not just deal with individual situations, but to strengthen our programs. And our performance program over the 20 years that I've been involved in performance management has changed a lot. And it is continuing to shift more and more to a greater focus on activities and behaviors and client loyalty to ensure that that balance that we're talking about here is in place. And our programs have also changed as well so that the calibration we put into the programs don't create that unnecessary sense that the objectives or the performance objectives that the employee or the team has are unrealistic. And where we find out that they are, we make adjustments to ensure that they're fair and that the basis of setting those objectives was objective.
Short one. Very brief. What steps have you taken since the case of Wells Fargo came out and the FCAC decided to investigate so that these issues are dealt with directly?
So in our case, we, as I say, we've always had measurement and monitoring and calibration mechanisms in place. We have strengthened those. The review cycles that we are now doing are quarterly or monthly. We are documenting all of the cases. We are documenting the investigations that we do. We are running regular data analysis around the products and services our advisors are providing to customers or the tools they're using to provide advice to, again, to ensure that the objectives we set are fair, but are also that the client experience is what we intend it to be. So we have significantly stepped up our efforts, and as I alluded to earlier, over the course of the last few years, we've begun to shift our programs to ones that place a greater focus on the client experience overall.
Ms. Blanchet or Mr. Orbach have anything to add to that?
We did take actions. La première chose qu'on a fait, c'est une auto-évaluation.
Firstly, we did a self-evaluation of our own practices internally, which we gave to the board as well as upper managers, and we also asked for an independent external audit on our sales practices. There are always ways to improve. We're not saying we're a perfect organization. There are some ways we can improve, and we are already doing that.
On what you've heard, we have put out a number of leadership messages to reinforce what we've talked about this evening. We also have worked extensively with our U.S. business, BMO Harris, and pulled the best practices and learnings that have come out of the U.S. In addition, we've strengthened our employee support tools, reinforcing the availability of the ways that people can, in fact, speak up. We've enhanced the monitoring of our potential sales issues, so this idea of monitoring behaviors. We've increased the frequency of those reviews. And finally, we're working very closely, as you know, with OSFI and FCAC on a quite extensive review that is quite broad across all the areas we've talked about.
Thank you all. Mr. Graywell.
Mr. Chair, and thank you for all being here today. My questions go back to the micro level again in the branch. How, because we're here to talk about aggressive sales tactics and in response to employees of banks coming forward and making allegations that they felt pressure to sell investment products, to upsell customers, even though they didn't believe that those customers needed that advice or they were in a position to give that advice. So it goes back to a quick question on, at the teller level, are your tellers paid by sales targets? Or as part of their compensation involves sales targets?
In our case, our tellers, or what we call, I know this is another question you'll ask around titling, they're called client advisors. They, for their bonus portion of their pay, which is a relatively small percentage, as I referenced earlier, there are a variety of objectives that are in place, activity and behavior objectives, client loyalty objectives, as well as outcomes. An outcome could be as simple as you going into a branch and asking for foreign exchange because you're going on a trip. And then they ask whether you've purchased travel insurance and then provide you with that solution to ensure that you and your family are protected on your trip.
Must operate in a different bonus system than they operate around this town then, because they give everybody a bonus whether they succeed or not. Not everybody, but senior managers. Sorry, Ms. Blanchet, go ahead.
Nos représentants service à clientèle n'ont pas de...
CSRs do not have sales targets.
balanced approach to the objectives. Certainly, we have objectives around CE measurements, around risk, around the behaviors, and around performance. And just to build on this idea of, from a CSR perspective, to answer your question specifically, what we try and do is provide tools to our CSRs to help them have great conversations with the customer. And so to give you a sense of the gambit, oftentimes, about half of the time, these are actually more service-oriented. These are milestone recognitions, perhaps celebrating a significant anniversary of dealing with our company. It really is grounded in deepening the customer experience with our customers, who, as you know, very often are mostly dealing with our CSRs.
See, the issue I have with this, and I brought this up in the first round of testimony too, is like a guy like me, if you put me in as a teller in my neck of the woods, I mean, my sales target would be through the roof, just because my ability to interact with people from my community, my ability to speak in their native tongue, and my ability to convince them of what they do not need. And I think that, my experience when I go to branches, especially in new communities where have a high population of immigrants or small business owners who might be very successful in the business that they know in terms of construction or landscaping or trucking, but aren't very savvy when it comes to what to do with their money. And I think that's where we're having a big issue at a branch level in terms of the CSR or the teller or the client advisor. So I go back to you, Kirk, at RBC. Client advisor, is that the regulated advisor or the unregulated advisor? And the difference between the O and the E?
That is the OR advisor, and that is the title we use consistently across RBC, regardless whether it's wealth management, in most cases wealth management or the bank. We really don't differentiate between the two spellings because every employee in every role is held accountable to not only our code of conduct, but a set of skills and behaviors that relate to their job type.
Yeah, the problem there is this, is that if you say that a guy that's a mutual fund advisor who has a CSC and has got the education, maybe has an MBA, at a minimum a BBA or a commerce degree, plus the securities regulation, as opposed to somebody at the front line, which is still called an advisor. Now, you can see clear as day how those two advisors are not at the same level.
And it's in the context of their role. So as a client advisor, the things that they're going to be providing advice around, they may be providing advice around how to do your day-to-day banking on your mobile phone or online, and teaching you and enabling you how to do that. And in fact, we had an 85-year-old client at our annual meeting reference that exact point, that he valued the fact that they were teaching him how to do banking today in today's world. It could be the travel insurance example, or it could be an example of something that they don't have the skills for to provide the deep advice, that they are then encouraged to introduce that client to an advisor that can do a better job of uncovering the needs and the goals of the client and recommending different options to achieve those goals. We would never ask that client advisor to recommend something they were not qualified to do.
But you could see how a customer would mistake the two, right? If there's you're an advisor with that, working at a bank, carries a certain level of cachet, right? As opposed to somebody that has the educational and institutional knowledge of actually providing investment advice. So I know all of the people on the bank side, and I don't want to pick on the banks because as a politician, I'm very much called a company man from time to time, and I drink the Kool-Aid just as anybody else does, right? But I want to say this, is that from a customer perspective, a very objective perspective, if you're walking into a bank and somebody that's at the tell is giving you investment advice, and the only point is that if they look at your profile, financial profile on their screen and saying, you should speak to X, have you ever thought of doing Y? I humbly suggest that is not within their expertise to suggest that to a customer because they don't know that customer's financial profile to that extent, and they shouldn't be making that type of recommendation. But that's one man's opinion. So I'll defer to the chair, and I think my time is up.
Yes, your time's up, but we'll defer to the witnesses if they've got anything to add.
Nothing to add. We would never put our employee in a situation where they were providing advice around something they weren't trained to do or qualified to do or comfortable doing.
Okay, and the heads are nodding, and everyone agrees at that end. Mr. Leipert.
I'm glad Mr. Graywall ended up at the very end saying it was his own singular opinion, because, you know, if we listen to Mr. Graywall here, I mean, you're all crooks. You're all trying to. Do any of you believe you have a service or a product that nobody wants? I think I heard Mr. Graywall say something along the lines that you're trying to sell a product that nobody wants. Do any of you believe you're selling a product that nobody wants? Presumably, you're selling a product or upselling a product that somebody may want. Anyway, I just I get very tired of liberals trying to save the world, but we'll go on. I'd like to ask each one of you. Whether, well, you're even worse, Peter. I'd like to ask each one of you, and maybe you can't answer this question, but on an annual basis, how many employees would you dismiss for doing something that would cross the line? Maybe it's fraudulent, maybe it's totally inappropriate, maybe it's consistently trying to sell something that nobody wants. Would it be less than 5? Would it be 5 to 10? Would it be 10 to 50? Just give me an idea of, on average, annually, how many employees you have discovered that are crossing the line.
Who wants to start? And you may not have the numbers. You can send them to us if you don't. But who wants to start? Mr. Dudshank?
In 2016, the cases that were investigated by our employee relations team for what we would put in the potential category of mis-selling were less than 75 cases on a base of 25,000 frontline employees, and significantly less than 20 were terminated.
Okay, thank you.
And that includes, and when I say mis-selling, I include fraud or falsification of customer records, which, as we talked about earlier, is outright wrong. Mm-hmm. It includes providing services to clients that the clients don't need, or cases where there may be a product bias that might have caused the advisor to go the wrong way and provide inappropriate advice.
I want to come back to you, Mr. Dudshank, on how do you determine when an employee sells a client a product they don't need?
We have a variety of ways we monitor for this. One is when we calibrate their programs or crunch the data, we look for skews in performance. We look for individuals that might be providing too much of one thing to the customers that they're meeting, which suggests there may be a bias by that advisor. What we also look for is whether the client actually uses the product or service they were providing. And our programs reward individuals for the education, not just the providing of the advice and the solution, but the education of the client, and we measure for whether the client actively uses it after. So those are a couple of examples of ways. The other thing I want to put out, though, this is the first time we've shared those numbers. The reality is we also watch and monitor for manager behavior and concurrently watch and monitor and make sure the overall program itself has integrity. Because if the numbers got any higher, you would want to ensure that the program in and of itself wasn't creating the wrong culture or the wrong bias. Okay, and then you would make changes.
Thank you, Ms. Blanchet. Did you want to answer Mr. Leipert's question?
Bien sûr, bien sûr. En fait, je vais être bien transparente avec.
Well, I'm going to be really transparent with you. I don't have the information on these figures. This can be provided in our review.
Mr. Orbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to reinforce the strong risk culture, I mean, we do have a detailed process for monitoring around behaviors, tracking, and then we have an investigative and security services group that would do a deeper, detailed review. The number is an extremely small one relative to the overall size of the population, and The extent of the investigations that would occur, a very, very small subset of them would actually trigger some disciplinary measures underneath them.
And I think this only applies to the two gentlemen. That wouldn't necessarily all be CSRs. That could be managers of CSRs?
This could be, this is our entire workforce of managers and frontline employees, right through to a commercial banker or a mortgage specialist, a financial planner, or a branch employee.
Same thing.
And the same would apply for us as well. It would be for all roles in our branch system.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leibert. Mr. Fergus, last question for this hearing.
Merci beaucoup d'être présent aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much for appearing today. I appreciate your testimony, and I have a few questions that I'd like to put to all of you. Questions that were asked in the other panel to the witnesses we had to do with the trust Canadians have in the banking system. I think that their trust has been shaken by the various media reports that we've read about, that we've seen on television in March. In a brief submitted to the committee, an Ontario lawyer, Howard Geller, pointed out that historically, regulatory agencies used to count on financial institutions to monitor themselves. So, my question, given the reports, the media coverage that goes back a couple of months, and the reports that continue in the media, and given the testimony we've heard in committee, what, according to you, should the role of the FCAC be, and of particular financial institutions? What kind of commitment should you make? What kinds of additional commitments should you take in order to restore the trust of Canadians in the Canadian banking system?
Great. Thank you for the question. Trust is the cornerstone of what we do in banking, as you know, and why we enjoy a very special relationship with our customers. It is entirely based on trust. To respond to the question, we are going through a very comprehensive review with FCAC and OSFI. Within our company, at BMO, we take the idea of having different risk management capabilities very seriously. Of course, we have measures that we've discussed within the teams I'm responsible for. We also have a separate risk management team to make sure we have appropriate governance, and finally, appropriate audit capability within the bank. However, the review that we're doing is going to be broad and comprehensive, and I suspect we'll have recommendations that would come from that.
Blanchet?
Il y a quite a similar response. Pardon. Une réponse similaire. Je dirais que
I'd have a similar response. I think overall, we collectively, stakeholders, legislators, banks, regulators, I think we have to increase financial literacy, the financial literacy of Canadians. I think it's something that we can work together on in order to improve the situation for Canadians.
We have a variety of internal programs, as we've already talked about, in place to ensure the integrity of the advice that we provide. We also have a variety of ways that we are working hard to increase literacy among our customer base. As was previously said, you specifically asked about regulators. We are working very closely with OSFI and the FCAC on their request, and we believe, and we do fully comply with the regulatory requirements. They are accountable to you, the Canadian government, not to us.
Three, I guess the question would be, if these complaints have come up with the existing systems that are in place, if the complaints have arisen with the existing system in place. Don't you think that this might call for additional measures that you would, I'm assuming you would prefer to have measures which you could develop on your own rather than to be regulated to that effect. So if that's the case, I'm certain there must have been some blue skying that has been gone on in each of your institutions. What type of additional measures do you think you could take to make sure that, or to, en français, on va surveiller dans les succursales?
In French, you would say monitor in the branches, because there doesn't seem to be enough at the present time.
The level of monitoring and the controls that we have in place over the last several years, but in particular over the last year or two, we are learning through this process as well. But we do believe in listening to our clients and listening to our employees and putting the practices in place that allow us to deliver the kind of advice and experience that our customers want and need, and the types of tools and programs that allow our employees to not only be engaged but be enabled to make a difference in our clients' lives. So we do continue to step up our programs and our monitoring to listen, to learn, and to change. And we are changing our performance programs. And we are building new tools directly for our customers, digital tools directly for our customers that our employees will use to make the advice even more consistent and more transparent to our customers. So there are actions clearly that we're taking, and we will work very closely with the FCAC and OSFI on this review, and we'll work with them to implement the outcomes as well.
Okay, we will have to end it there. I thank you for your presentations and for coming to Ottawa. Yes.
I'd like to, I believe I had some informal discussions with some of our colleagues around the way on the possibility of bringing forward a motion. Could I introduce that motion here? It would take just a second.
If there's unanimous consent to continue, we can, because we are at 6:30.
It will just take 1 second. It's really quick.
Just, Mr. Chair, we do have is it a motion for future committee business?
It would be following on this. It's just what it's asking for is that whenever the FCAC comes back with their report, that we invite them to come back to the committee, and we also ask to find out how they followed up on our eventual recommendations, and also to ask the banks to come back to see how they're.
For committee business on Wednesday, can this not just be part of that discussion?
It can be, so we'll deal with this at committee business on Wednesday. Thank you again, the witnesses, for coming and making the trek. Meeting adjourned.